Today I'm talking about RF microneedling injuries, counterfeit Botox, and fake doctors. Issues like these are popping up more and more in aesthetics, and patients are getting hurt because they don't know what to look for. I want to start with the FDA's new warning on RF microneedling. People are experiencing burns, fat loss, scarring, and most of these injuries come down to the wrong device or the wrong hands. I'll explain what the FDA actually said and how to know if your provider is doing this safely. Then we need to talk about counterfeit Botox. This month, the FDA just went after a bunch of websites for selling unapproved toxins and fillers. This happened after a slew of people ended up in the hospital with botulism last year. If you get injectables, this part matters. And you don't want to miss the last topic. I almost had a guest on this podcast who claimed to be a doctor. What I found when I checked her credentials is exactly the kind of thing that can put patients at risk, and you should know how to spot it. By the end, you'll know what's safe, what's not, and how to protect yourself every time you visit a med spa. Let's get into it. Have you all seen the FDA warning letter about the dangers of RF microneedling? This came out on October 15th, 2025, and I feel the very strong need to set the record straight. Hi, I'm Dr. Kate D, and I read this FDA letter that was put out to consumers and providers warning about serious complications from RF microneedling, including burns, scarring, fat loss, disfigurement, and nerve damage, and the need for surgical repair or medical intervention to treat these injuries. So what's going on here? Because that has not been my experience after thousands and thousands of treatments that we've done at Glow Medspa here in Seattle. So what's going on? Why did the FDA issue this letter? I'm going to get into all the details here. So first of all, what is RF microneedling and why do we love it so much? So RF microneedling is the use of radiofrequency energy delivered through multiple small needles that go into the dermis of the skin. And it produces a large amount of collagen and elastin. It can actually thicken and tighten the skin, and it's great to improve the elasticity and the texture of the skin. It's my number one go-to anti-aging treatment that I do. I've done a previous episode all about RF microneedling with Dr. Judith Borger back in August of last year, of 24. This was season 2, episode 1, if you want to find it. And in it, we describe everything you need to know about RF microneedling and why we both love the procedure so much. So my experience has been, we've been doing this for over 10 years now. I've never seen any of these complications in any patient. So what's going on? The only complication I've seen related to RF microneedling, I've seen about 5 cases over 10 years of a transient hyperpigmentation in patients, mostly Asian patients who have a propensity to hyperpigment with various energy procedures. They were all transient, meaning they went away in a few months. They were all treatable. No permanent harm was ever done. Never seen any scarring, never seen any fat loss. So why are we seeing this warning letter now? I think there are 2 big problems in what's going on out there. There are dangerous providers, and then there are dangerous devices. So let's get into that. Who are the bad providers? Well, okay, not to beat a dead horse, but we've talked about this on the podcast many times. There are a lot of people out there practicing medicine without a license, or they have a license and they're practicing out of the scope of their license with no medical director. Why is this a big deal? Yes, if used improperly with the wrong energy settings, with the wrong depths, with the wrong device, these complications could happen. Why does it not happen in my hands and my staff? Well, we use a really great device that is able to be very carefully adjusted to your needs, to your skin. We change the depth depending on how thick the skin is there. We change the energy settings, and we make sure that what we're doing is safe. There are plenty of people out there who think, the more the better. Turn up the energy, turn up the depth. Well, that's a way to lose your fat and get scarring. So we're very careful with that. I think it's really, really critical to make sure if you're going to have this treatment, you go somewhere with qualified experts doing the procedure. Okay. So the second thing, is there are bad devices. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and name the one I'm talking about. If you do a Google search of any of these complications and RF microneedling, Or if you do a Google search of RF microneedling and the word lawsuit, you're going to come up with lots of lawsuits about one device. And that device is Morpheus 8 by a company called InMode. The thing that makes Morpheus different from all the other machines is that it uses uninsulated needles. Okay. So I'm going to actually explain to you why that's a big deal. So the machine we use is called Genius, and there are many other machines that have insulated needles where it allows you to deliver a very precise amount of energy at a precise location in the skin. Okay. The insulation along the needles means that the RF energy is deposited only at the tip of the needle. Okay. With Morpheus, the RF energy is delivered all along the entire shaft of the needle. And what that means is it's delivering energy all over the place at the too shallow and too deep. And that is a recipe for scarring, for possibly disfigurement, for definitely for fat loss, especially if you're too deep. And honestly, a lot more high risk of hyperpigmentation. So I have never liked this device, and I've talked about it. I didn't actually name it in the book, but it's the company that makes it has a very strong sales team, and they convince everybody that it's the best. They do a lot of direct-to-consumer marketing. A lot of people know about Morpheus, but in my opinion, it's a dangerous device. If you Google any of the other device names and the word lawsuit, the only thing you will see are patent infringement lawsuits, because these companies are busy suing each other because they are so effective. These treatments are so effective. They want everyone to, use their device. And so there are arguments about patent infringement, but there haven't been any lawsuits that I can find. And please go ahead and message me if you have a lawsuit that you can find against one of these other devices. But they're all about Morpheus. And so I think that this is really given RF microneedling a bad rap. I personally love it. I am almost 58 years old, and I personally have had about 17 or 18 of these treatments, and I really believe in them. And we have been doing it for a long time. I think it's by far the best anti-aging treatment you can do. It's great for loose, hangy skin. It tightens and thickens the skin. It improves texture and elasticity, and it is definitely safe in the right hands. So always ask, who is the medical director? Who is going to be doing the procedure, and what kind of license and training do they have? And if you have any questions about that, just don't have the procedure. Just make sure you're going to someone who knows what they're talking about. And ask your provider or your Medspa to get certified by the Medspa board. You might remember a year ago, there were a bunch of people who were sent to the hospital with botulism poisoning because of fake Botox that they got from Medspas across the country. At the time, there were, I believe, 22 people who had trouble breathing, and they were sent to the hospital. One person ended up on a ventilator. I think it was 11 different states. And what they found was that people around the country were ordering fake product off the internet from Alibaba and from these other sources. And the problem is that those fake products actually had more Botox in the vial than we typically see in America. And obviously more Botox is dangerous, right? So if you've been listening to the show, you know I've got stories for days about what goes on in med spas. I finally put them all in a book. It's called Medspa Mayhem. I wrote it because I got tired of hearing about people getting hurt by providers who have no business holding a syringe. You'll read about real patients, real nightmares, but more importantly, you'll know exactly what to look for when you walk into any med spa and what questions to ask. It's part expose, part survival guide, and it might just save your life. Medspa Mayhem will leave you informed, entertained, and a little shocked at what's really going on behind the business of the aesthetics industry. The link is in the episode description. Read it before you book your next appointment, because beauty should never come at the cost of your safety. If the amount of Botox is not regulated in what's in the vial, then potentially you could end up with botulism and not breathe and die if you get too much of it. So the FDA, November 5th, they issued cease and desist letters to, I think, 14 different companies that offer these unapproved fake products or products from foreign countries that they're illegally importing into the United States and issued a warning letter to providers across America not to be ordering products from those companies because it's dangerous. So I wanted to draw attention to a few things. So first of all, if you're a legit medical spa, you will know this is not legal. So it is only legal to purchase Botox from Allergan. That's the company that makes Botox. Anything else is going to be fake Botox. It is only legal to buy Dysport from Galderma. That's the company that makes Dysport. And as some of you might know, that's my favorite neurotoxin. There are several more neurotoxins that are approved in the United States. And there are many more in various countries that are not approved here for various different reasons. It could be that they're okay, but just haven't been tested enough. It could be that they're not okay because the country where they're made is not really regulating that over there. So there's also other, bad actors out there putting labels on things that are not Botox at all. And other medications too, they're putting labels on a vial and you don't know what's in it. So if it comes from China or somewhere across the globe and they put a fake label on it, it says Botox or Dysport or something like that. Who knows what's in that? Would you want that injected in you? But places around the country who either know this is illegal, but it's cheap, so they'd rather do it that way, take their chances, or they don't know it's illegal and they see this website on the internet and it's so much cheaper. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know everybody was getting their, no wonder, that place down the street's undercutting me. They're getting it cheaper over there from this other website. Who knew about that website? I've actually been on Facebook groups where people genuinely ask this question. Hey, you guys, where are you getting your fillers from? I got an email from this site and it was listed one of these fake filler sites. And everybody in the group who already knows is like, hey, that's illegal. And then the people who didn't know it was illegal are like, wait a minute, I've been getting it from there. Or the person, well, I'm glad I asked. Okay. But as a consumer, okay, the most important thing is never, ever, ever go to a place that's going to buy fake Botox or fake filler. I do think the FDA, it's great that they issued this warning. It's super important for people to keep this in mind. Like, don't go to one of those places. It's incredibly late. So these cases where people were sent to the hospital with botulism, that happened in the first half of 24. And we are now almost at the end of 25 before the FDA issued any warnings. Okay. So if you're a provider out there, please know that there are no good ways to cut corners here. You cannot cut the corner. Okay. So Botox is very expensive. If people are wondering why Botox is so expensive here and why it's so cheap in Brazil. Okay. My friend, her family's in Brazil and she goes and get her Botox there and it's like $4 a unit. Okay, well, it is much cheaper in Brazil, but it's also illegal to import it either through Brazil. And I know we've covered this at least once before, but let's say you're taking actual real Allergan-made Botox that is in, Europe somewhere. Can you then buy it from a place in Europe and ship it over here? Well, one, that's not legal, so you're avoiding a bunch of taxes and I hate to say it, tariffs, but that's not legal. Not only with the FDA, but the U.S. Customs and Border Control are going to come after you or could potentially come after you. And they have definitely arrested people for that. But also, you don't know the trail, how it got here. So was it shipped in the right kind of container? Was it properly temperature controlled? I mean, Botox has to be kept on dry ice to ship it. How can you ship that from Europe on dry ice? I mean, dry ice evaporates, it's gone in a day. So it's like not even possible, right? So even if somebody said to you, hey, I've got Botox, it's real Botox, and they got it from Europe, like chances are it's potentially not even active anymore. It's possible if it warmed up on its journey here from Europe. So do not ever go to a place that's importing product like that. And also, if you're a provider, don't do it. Please don't do it. It's dangerous. You could send somebody to the hospital. And I'm just talking about Botox here. The sites that the FDA put on notice offer all kinds of injectable products and other kinds of beauty products, all of which are not legal here. So don't do it. It's super dangerous, especially also with filler. If you're putting something you don't know what it is and you get a vascular occlusion, you may not be able to treat it because it might not be hyaluronic acid filler. So anyway, kudos to the FDA for actually issuing a warning finally. And I think everybody should keep this in mind that it is really, really the wrong way to go, whether you're looking for a place to get Botox or whether you're providing Botox to patients. I was recently approached by a PR firm to have a doctor on my podcast. I get these emails pretty frequently. And it turns out that this particular doctor was not actually a doctor at all. A quick look at her website, and I found there were actually several things that showed that this provider is really pulling a fast one. So first of all, she's a nurse practitioner and not a doctor. And how is it that she's calling herself a doctor? Well, because she has a degree called a DNP, or Doctorate of Nursing Practice. And do DNPs practice medicine? No, actually. And it's actually illegal for them to pass themselves off as doctors. That's considered fraud, like false advertising, right? So nurses practice nursing, and nurse practitioners have an advanced degree called Advanced Practice Registered Nurse, or APRN, where they practice advanced nursing. And according to the law, they do not and cannot practice medicine. Doctors alone have the license to practice medicine. So why should you care? It's not just that it's not legal, but it is not safe. So I'm going to get into what it is that's wrong here and why it should matter to you, okay? Because nurses don't go to medical school and they're not doctors. And even if they have a PhD in nursing, there was actually a federal court ruling recently, actually just a couple weeks ago, that was started in California. And that basically said that nurse practitioners who have a doctorate in nursing cannot call themselves doctors. I really don't want to harp on nurses here. That this is a very small number of people. Most nurses don't try to pass themselves off as anything other than who they are. We have an amazing nursing force, so I don't want people to think that I'm piling on nurses. But what this is a few bad actors grabbing money. Okay, I'll explain what this is. But this particular nurse practitioner was in South Carolina. And this is what the email said. We wanted to reach out and recommend Dr. Laura, I'll just leave her last name out, founder of a wellness clinic in Charleston, South Carolina, as a potential guest for the Medspa Confidential podcast. Laura is doctorally prepared, board-certified family nurse practitioner from the Medical University of South Carolina. And if you look at her website, the nurse calls herself a doctor on the website, even though that's not really legal. And she also claims to be the medical director of that spa, which she cannot actually be, because there are actually several states that actually half the states about allow nurse practitioners some degree of independent practice, but South Carolina is not one of them. So she can't practice independently in South Carolina at all. She has to have a medical director. Okay. So, and the other thing is there's no such thing as board certification for nurse practitioners. Okay. There is a nursing board and all nurses get their license from the nursing board. Okay. But that is not the same thing as what board certification means for doctors. Let's jump into this. Okay, what are the big differences here? Why is it a big deal? Can't nurses just do what doctors do? How big a deal is it? I want to tell you exactly what this woman did to get her DNP degree. Okay, so, anyone who has an advanced degree, if you have a PhD, which by the way takes 7 years, not 2, the DNP program that this woman did was a 2-year online only degree that she got from the Medical University of South Carolina. Okay. I'll give you an example of somebody. So my high school Latin teacher had a PhD in the classics and his name was Dr. McCall. And we called him Dr. McCall. That's fine. But he wasn't opening up a medical clinic and claiming to be a doctor of medicine. Right. So this Laura went to the MUSC DNP program, and I will tell you what she studied. So in year 1, she studied organizational theory and healthcare management, applied epidemiology and biostatistics, scientific underpinnings, evidence-based practice, quality and safety, frameworks of leadership, practice inquiry, IRB, applied healthcare economics. You get the idea, okay? These degrees are designed so that nurses can go into research, administration, teaching, academics, okay? These degrees are not about learning how to practice medicine. And that took 2 years online. All right. So I'm going to just tell you what doctors have to go through to become doctors, okay? So first of all, it's 4 years of medical school. I went back to my alma mater, which was Yale Medical School, and I'm going to tell you all the things that we had to study just in med school in the first couple years. So scientific foundations, genes and development, attacks and defenses, homeostasis, energy and metabolism, connection to the world across lifespan, professional responsibility, anatomy, scientific inquiry, populations and methods, biochemistry, cell biology, diagnostic methods, embryology, genetics, health equity, pathology, pharmacology, and physiology. That's just in the beginning, okay? And then that's before you do any clinical rotations, which are about 2 years in the hospital. Okay, so that's 4 years of medical school. Then doctors do 1 year of internship. I did a year of internship in internal medicine. Then doctors do a residency, which can be anywhere from 3 to 7 years, sometimes more. I did 4 years of residency in radiology. And then many doctors do a fellowship. That is optional. I did a 1-year fellowship in breast imaging. So if you add up my medical school, internship, residency, and fellowship, that was 10 years of my life. Okay. So all of that before I could get a job at all as a physician. All right. So none of that compares to 2 years of online, nursing administration school. Right. And now let's just talk about what is board certification. Okay. Because I think that a lot of people don't know. People know that's really important. Is your doctor board certified? The person who is going to do your heart surgery should be board certified in surgery and have enough training in heart surgery to be able to do heart surgery, right? Like they have a board certification in cardiothoracic surgery. Okay, super important, right? Because they know how to do that. I'm going to tell you what my board certification was like in radiology. We had 2 written exams, one kind of halfway through the residency that was all physics, and then a second written exam towards the end of residency that was literally all the rest of radiology. And then there was a third in-person oral exam, which took all day long. And back in my day, it was in Kentucky. We all did it in Kentucky. But anyway, a lot of people failed that and had to retake it. I mean, it is the culmination of, this 10-year program to get you to be board certified in a certain subspecialty. So it has a very huge meaning to doctors. Okay. And so for a nurse practitioner who didn't go to med school to claim that she has board certification is just, it's confusing to the public because how do you know what that means? And it's a little bit it's a little bit offensive to someone who actually did go through the many, 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 many years of education and training and exam taking and many people having to retake that exam to really become an expert in the thing that they do. And so there is no such thing. There is no equivalent in nursing to what doctors do to become board certified. So for a nurse practitioner to claim that they're a doctor, to claim that they are board certified, to claim that they're the medical director, especially in a state that has no independent practice, it's just fraud, okay? And that person is doing they're promoting themselves. And in this country, it's fine. Self-promotion, no problem with that. But self-promotion should be based on the truth, on I am an expert. This is what I do, okay? And, it's one thing, a nurse practitioner may do aesthetics all day, every day. They might be an amazing expert. There are so many nurse practitioners and RNs and doctors who are experts and PAs who are experts in aesthetic medicine because we do it all day, every day, and you get really, really good at it. But if you claim to be something that you're not, what else are you lying about? You can go and look on my website and it says I'm a radiologist. I'm not a dermatologist. I'm not a plastic surgeon, but I have been doing this for over 10 years and it's all I do. Okay. And now, of course, I make podcasts, but I think it's really, really important to make sure that the person that you're going to is not lying to you. Okay. So if you see someone who says they're a nurse practitioner and they're board certified, that's a lie. If you see somebody who says that they're a nurse practitioner, but they're a doctor, that's really a lie. It's a big a lie as my Latin teacher working at a medical clinic claiming to be a doctor. It's just extremely misleading. So make sure that ask those basic questions. Okay, who's the medical director? And look them up. Who's my provider? And look them up. And don't be fooled by people claiming to be something that they're not. Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, do me a favor and share it with a friend who's considering any aesthetic treatments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And drop a comment telling me your biggest takeaway. I actually read them all. Let's keep each other safe and elevate the standards in the Medspa industry.